Giannis Antetokounmpo is currently playing the best basketball of his NBA career by far. That may sound wild, given that the man has 2 MVP trophies to his name and is coming off of a dramatic knee hyperextension, but it's true. He has played at a historic level in these finals, averaging 34, 14, and 5 on better than 62% shooting from the field, and having just become the first player to post consecutive 40 and 10 games in the finals since Shaq. Now, if Giannis put up those numbers in any old 3-game stretch in January, you'd probably shrug and say, so what? The guy's a machine. He does this. But this stretch, for pretty obvious reasons, is very different. Regular season dominance has always come easy to Giannis. That's where he posts his historic numbers with mind-boggling efficiency and comfortably guides teams to the league's best record. But the playoffs have always presented a different set of challenges for him to which he hasn't always had the answers. And to fully appreciate how remarkable what Giannis is doing right now really is, I think we need to first understand that side of it, why he's struggled historically and what he's had to overcome to get here. First off, the game slows down dramatically in the playoffs, which is not great for Giannis, who happens to be the most dominant transition player in basketball, but also has, by superstar standards, a relatively limited shot creation skill set in the half court. Over the past couple postseasons, we've seen his transition output and efficiency take a significant dive, as you would expect, which clearly hurts his overall effectiveness. Giannis has also had to deal with the sort of strategic exploitation of his skill set in the playoffs that you just don't see in the regular season when a team flies in to face you on a Tuesday night for one of their 82 games. As in the 2019 and 2020 playoffs, we saw Giannis limited and the Bucks upset by teams who were ideally equipped to handle him as far as both personnel and game plan. Both the Raptors and the Heat took Giannis out of his element by, as they say, building a wall, dedicating multiple bodies to stopping him in transition, and then aggressively sending help at him in half-court situations, a strategy that was made possible in part by the abysmal shooting of Eric Bledsoe, who teams were happy to leave alone as he shot 24% from deep over his last 2 postseasons with the Bucks, and by the fact that both teams were privileged to have a variety of fantastic defensive players. The Raptors had Kawhi Leonard and Pascal Siakam on the perimeter to handle Giannis, with Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol as brilliant help defenders, while the Heat had an incredible rotation of Giannis stoppers featuring Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Andre Iguodala, and Jay Crowder. By keeping him from ever making his way downhill without facing multiple quality defenders, both teams crushed Giannis's raw scoring output and efficiency and took his team down with him. Massive shortcomings like that in consecutive postseasons, given the expectations for Giannis and those Bucks teams, will certainly earn you a reputation. And early on in this year's playoffs, it certainly looked like Giannis might have been in store for more of the same disappointment. Although the Bucks easily exacted revenge on the Heat in the first round, sweeping them, Giannis himself was far from spectacular, and early on against the Nets, he found himself facing a new challenge. See, the Nets didn't have personnel like the Heat or the Raptors of years prior. They didn't have signature perimeter stoppers or imposing rim protectors, so building the sort of traditional wall that the Heat and Raptors pulled off, where multiple quality defenders would meet Giannis on multiple levels, would be difficult. So instead, they pretty much just planted Blake Griffin in the paint, looked at Giannis and said, "We think Blake is strong enough to hang with you one-on-one if you come downhill, so we'll give you this runway because hopefully you'll look at all that space and settle for threes or mid-range jumpers, which you're just not good at." Early on, Giannis played into that hand and struggled with that matchup. Blake did a pretty good job on him inside, and he did settle a decent amount. Even when he was able to score, the nature of the Nets' defense led to a ton of possessions in which Giannis just isolated up top and decided whether he was going to barrel inside or take a pull-up jumper, which led to a general stagnation and lack of ball movement in Milwaukee's offense that hurt them and limited them to 86 points in back-to-back games. So through 7 games of these playoffs, Giannis was again struggling. Some of the issues were the same as in years past. For example, he wasn't producing at his typical level in transition, scoring just about 3.1 fast break points per game, but he was also just taking way too many threes and not enough free throws or high probability shots at the rim. Honestly, it looked like things were pretty much over for the Bucks. Their one win against the Nets in Game 3 was a hideous rock fight in which Giannis shot a brutal 1 of 8 from deep, and it seemed that his lack of counters had been exploited in the playoffs yet again. Now, clearly things have changed since then, because after initially struggling against the Nets defense that ranked near the bottom of the league, Giannis just played 2 of his best games ever against an elite Phoenix defense with all the pressure on him. So how has he done it? How has he made that switch and gotten to the point where now he's playing at this level? Well, I think one crucial shift in Giannis' game started last round, when the Hawks saw what the Nets did to him and decided to use a similar strategy themselves with Clint Capella as his primary defender. If Blake could sag off Giannis with some level of success, certainly a DPOY candidate like Capella could do the same, forcing him into tough looks and taking the Bucks offense out of rhythm. Although Giannis had already shown some improvement throughout that Nets series, the rationale made sense. But Giannis just stopped taking the bait. Versus the Nets, he took 21 threes over his first 4 games, which he unsurprisingly made just 4 of. In the 4 games he played against the Hawks, he took just 8 triples in total. He stopped doing what he was bad at and just did what he was good at over and over. In the finals, the Suns came out playing a similar hand, using Ayton, another phenomenal defender, as the primary option on Giannis and giving him plenty of runway. But Giannis has again stopped settling. Through 3 games of the finals, he's attempted just 9 threes and has instead overwhelmingly found his way to the bucket. He's knocked down 26 of his 30 shots inside of 5 feet, converting those looks at an 87% clip, and has attempted an absurd 47 free throws, almost 16 a game, which is a clear reflection of his aggression in this series. He's taken that runway and just gone with it, relentlessly attacking Ayton and besting him at various points with stunning quickness, raw power, impressive body control, elusivity and skilled finishing, touch with his back to the basket, a knack for drawing fouls, really about everything you could look for from a player inside of 10 feet. Overall in the finals, 79% of Giannis's points have come either at the rim or at the line. That's 27.7 points per game. Over the first 7 games of these playoffs, that number was nearly 10 points per game lower, which reflects the massive change in his mindset from then to now. Also, just to keep things in perspective, before this year, Giannis had never scored 27 points per game in a single postseason. And now, in the NBA Finals, he's dropping 28 a game, only counting his points at the rim and the line. It's just a level of dominance we've never seen from him or almost anybody before. It's also important to note that although Giannis has gone right at Ayton and been successful in doing so, things get a lot easier when he has anybody else on him, as we saw in Game 3, when Ayton dealt with foul trouble and was more often employed as a help defender than as the primary guy checking Giannis. First off, with Ayton off the floor, Giannis cleaned up on the offensive glass in Game 3, scoring 4 second chance buckets, 2 of which were and ones. Without a rim protector who could challenge him physically, the Bucks were also able to use Giannis more as a roll man, where he scored another 4 easy buckets, tripling his usual per-game production there. And finally, he made really good defenders like Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder look like boys in one-on-one situations, blowing by them and overpowering them routinely. Without Ayton, there was nothing approaching an answer to Giannis on this Suns roster. And really, he's just played to his strengths beautifully across the board in this series. He's capitalized in transition, where he's scoring 5.3 fast break points per game, and has made good decisions as a playmaker when he infiltrates the paint, having only turned the ball over 7 times in total. It's also worth noting that, while his offensive production stands out the most, Giannis has changed the series defensively as well. It became clear pretty quickly that if there were any exploitable pieces on the floor defensively for the Bucks, Chris Paul and Devin Booker would run pick and roll to death right at that poor fella until he had to head to the bench. And despite his best efforts, Brook Lopez ended up being one of those exploitable pieces. CP and Book both shredded him out of the mid-range in Game 1 as he gave them a bit too much space to work with, and they made it clear they would continue to do so if Lopez played heavy minutes. So, with Brook in a more limited role, the Bucks have turned to Giannis playing big minutes at the 5, a formula that has been dominant for them throughout these playoffs as they've outscored opponents by 13.5 points per 100 possessions when they play Giannis at center alongside Holiday, Middleton, PJ Tucker, and Pat Connaughton. Given Giannis's tremendous ability both guarding the perimeter and protecting the rim, the Bucks now have no real weak points defensively. If he switched on to Booker CP, neither one can blow by him, and he has the length to affect their mid-range jumpers, but he's equally outstanding as a true defensive big, having held opponents 19% below their typical field goal percentage at the rim in these playoffs. Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean he'll take away CP and Book, but he's clearly given the Bucks their best option to make life hard on them. And beyond the individual stats or one specific element of his skill set, Giannis' statistical impact on his team's success has been far more pronounced in these playoffs. Whereas in the last couple of Bucks runs, the team was only a bit better with Giannis on the floor than off it, this year he has posted a monstrous on-off number, much more on par with what you see from him in the regular season. So yeah, all around, in every respect, he has just been undeniably phenomenal. And I'll be honest, I don't think I ever expected to see Giannis play at this level on this stage. I was too scarred by the years past and too concerned about the shortcomings in his skill set. But here he is, fearless, utterly dominant, and giving his team life. So yes, the MVP awards are great, but to me, given the degree of difficulty of this stage and what he's had to overcome, this is the defining moment in Giannis' career and easily the most impressive thing he's ever done. And if he and the Bucks can pull this off, those losses to the Raptors and the Heat, as catastrophic as they may have felt in the moment, will just be remembered as bumps in the road. challenges he had to overcome that ultimately made him stronger and shaped him, just like we saw with Jordan, LeBron, and so many greats before them. And yeah, in reality, it's different. Those series didn't force him to add muscle like the Pistons did for Jordan, or make him refine his jump shooting like the Mavs did for LeBron. In fact, the biggest weakness in his game that those teams exploited remains. But remarkably, he is still dominating in spite of that fact, which I think is a testament to the all-time determination and competitive fire that makes him who he is. In this moment, when he's playing like this, he's transcended nitpicking. And no matter what flaws exist in his game, he just looks unstoppable. It's time to just appreciate greatness. And if he can remain close to this level the rest of the way, then win or lose, this will be a final showing we should all remember forever. To those of you who have made it this far, as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, the good news is there is plenty more Nerd Sesh content. As you can see here on our YouTube channel, we are doing 2 podcasts a week right now, both on the NBA as the season comes to a close, and you can watch the full videos of those here, or you can listen on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your audio content, and I will link those in the description. If you want to just keep posted with what we're doing, you can follow us on social media, Twitter at nerd_sesh, Instagram at Nerd Sesh. We post tons of short video content there, clips from the podcast. And then you can also follow us on TikTok at Nerd Sesh, where in particular, my friend Logan, with whom I do the podcast, has really started putting in some work, and I will be contributing there soon as well. So you can find us in all of those places. But with that, guys, as always, thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed.